Hello friends, hello students. Today we are going to read about G. Patel's famous poem Servants. G. Patel was born in 1942. He was a great Indian poet and The Servant was one of his famous poems. Servant is a poem who describe about the situation of laborers who make their home in the distant city. They lived there, the life of cattle, the life of animals there. This poem shows the poor condition of servants in the cities. They live in slum area and they are called slum dogs in that area. They live a miserable life in cities. G. Patel described in this poem a clear picturization or a clear portrait of the poor person or the servants who works in the cities for the persons who live in the cities. Their conditions are very miserable. The poem described, and this poem appear in the New Commonwealth Poets 1965. It is the collection in which this poem appear at the first time. This poem describe about laborers who have made home in the distant city. They made their homes in the distant city because they have no source of income in their villages. They came from villages and forced to live in the cities because they got their job and they live a life of animal in the cities. They live together in the shack like animal in a shed. Animals live in under a shade or in a shade the whole life and without any other activities. The servant also does the same thing. The servant's condition is very miserable and the poet want to say that they came of peasant stock truant from an insufficient plot. These are the opening line of the poem. These lines shows us that they come from the peasant stock. Stock means the stock, the peasants stock, peasants group. They came from the peasants group means they came from far away the villages or from countryside. They came and they work in the cities. When they came here, they came. Why they came in the cities? Because they have no work, they have no occupation, they have no job, or there is no much ways of income in the village side because there is no water in the earth. They have gained it completely and now they became jobless in the villages, so they come in the cities and take jobs, very similar, very minor jobs in the cities. The opening line says that they came of peasant stock, truant from an insufficient plot. Plot means they are filled. Insufficient plot because there is no sufficient production in the plot in the field of their village. So they came to the city and work here for a while. Lights are shut off after dinner, but the city blur enters. Lights are off because it is night, but the city blurs. Blurs means the smoke, the city smoke enter into their house, enter into their lungs, enter into their life, enter into their society, into their slum area. And fix modulation on the sky. There are the different shades in the sky and the dark around them. There is the darkness around them is brown. Links body to body. They are lying one by one in the shacks because there is not much space in the room. They are 10 by 10 room and they are 40 person may live together in the slum area or in the area of the servants in the cities. As we can see in the Delhi near the railway lines, there are at least 9 to 10 kilometer slum area and their life is very miserable. They live the life of animals. A 10 by 10 room contains 40 to 50 people. It is imagineless. We cannot imagine how they live and they live one by one and they are touched each other, the body to body, links to body. Or it is dispelled and the hard finger glow as smoke is inhaled. They inhale taking breath. They inhale the smoke as a breath because the dirt of the city, the smoke of the city enter into the slum area and they inhale that all dirty into their lungs and all dirty into their water and all dirty in their food. Means completely they live a life of animal. So the poet compares to the servants with animals life. And the hard finger glow as smoke is inhaled. When they smoke the cigarettes and the bidis, the smoke, the flesh of the smoke can be seen in their fingers. Glow as smoke is inhaled and the lighted end of tobacco become an orange spot. The tobacco stick, or can be said cigarette, the tobacco stick became red and we can see an orange spot on the bidi or the cigarette. It shows that they live a life of animal and behaved, and they make an effort to make themselves tireless. They smoke bidis and cigarette. This shows the other side of the society. It shows that the servants who are not who don't want to work here, the servants who don't want to work in the city, but they are forced to work in the cities. So they smoke cigarettes and bidis to reduce their tiredness, their bad situation and their bad habits. Now the second stanza shows us, other hands are wide or shut, it does not matter, only one way or other. Other hands are wide or shut. Most of people sleep with the open handed and some are twisted handed, and it has no matter one way or another, because we can sleep in any way. But the situations are very bad, because one's arm is another's leg, one's arm is on another person's tummy, and one's leg is on the mouth of someone's. So this shows a very miserable condition, which is very similar to the life of animals. As we can see in a plot, there are 100 pigs and they sleep on each other. The same situation is presented in here. They sit without thought, mouth slightly open. After smoking, they completely has gone on thinking way. They are busy in thinking what the situation is, removing from day to day, recovering from day to day, and the eyes globe into the dim. Their mouth is slightly open. They are just thinking, what happened? They don't know what is going in their life, because they are living a life of animal, and as well as animal cannot think, their condition is also the same. From the day, and the eyes globe into the dim. Their eyes seems the globe. Their eyes seems to globe. They are similar to the globe. In third stanza and in the last stanza, poet also express one more situation of their life, but are not informed because never have traveled beyond this silence. They don't know that there is a world beyond these boundaries, because they are the frog of well. They live the life of a frog in a well, and they don't know that there is another world beyond this boundary. They born in a village and then come to the city and then live a life of servant or animal, and they don't know that there is a life beyond all these situations. There is another world beyond this. They live here, they died here. This is their fate, and it is very bad condition of the society. Beyond this, silence here present ignorance. They are uneducated. They don't know what is the education is. They don't know what is the country, what is the world, and what is the universe. They nothing know about the situation of the world, and they are living a life of ignorance in this city, in the slum area. The area is very bad. Smell, dirty smells, and the dirty smoke, all are their part of their life. They become the part of their life. Now, they sit like animals, I mean no offense. Here, the poet present a positive side of the servants. The poet said, as well as the animals are innocent, same situation is with the servants. They are also very innocent, because they don't know what is the crime is, because they are busy morning to the evening on the earning money for their family, for their wealth, and for their better condition. They don't know what is the crime is, and they are just like animal, because as well as animals are innocent, the servants, the laborers are also innocents. I mean no offense, means they have made no offense till then. I have seen animals resting in their stall. The poet describes here that he saw that how the cattle resting in their animals. Just similar, the scene is at present with before his eyes about the servants. The servants live the life as well as the animals. Then I have seen animals resting in the stall, the oil flame reflected in their eyes. This is a beautiful picturization of G. Patel's poetry that he described about a lamp, an oil flame lamp, that the reflection of the oil lamp can be seen into the eyes of the farmers, of the workers, of the laborers, and of the servants. This is a beautiful picturization. And large beads that though protruding actually rest behind the regular grin of their jaw. And the large beads and the large eyes of the servants, the throw protruding, we can say that though protruding means sticking, actually rest behind the regular grin of the jaws. When he grinned his jaws, the eyes take a rest and after a click of the eyes. Now we can say that G. Patel make a very beautiful effort of in this poem, and he gives a real picturization of this poem in these lines. He want to show that the condition of the servants are very bad in the cities. They live the life of cattle, as well as cattle live their life in a plot or in a field with lying each other's on the each other's on each other's body. And now I want to summarize the thought of the poem. In these lines or in this poetry, poet want to say that all the peasants, all the farmers or the laborers and all the servants came from far away from countryside, and they live in the city life, a very miserable life, because there is nothing like a life. Because the life of the servant, the life of the labor is just called the life of a servant, an animal, the life of an animal. And then the poet described the situation of the servants at their home. The situation is very bad because they live a life of very poor person. They sit slightly mouth open and they are smoking by one, and they are busy in thinking what are they and what is their motivation to take the place in the cities. They live an aimless life. They don't know why they come here because there is ignorance in their life. They don't know what is the word. They are only slum dogs. They are only servants. They are only animals, and they are forced to live a miserable life in the city. In this poem, the poet describes about the miserable condition of servant and the technique, graphic technique. The poet used here a graphic technique. He shows us a picturization. We can imagine as well as we read the poem, we can imagine the situation of the poem. The orange spot glowing. As the peasants smoke the bidis and cigarette, an orange spot glowing at their mouth, because when they inhale the smoke, the lights glow up. They sit smoking. It is also show and a good picturization of the servants when they smoke bidis and cigarettes, comparing their picture to that of animal. The picture of animal, the condition of the animal is compared, and the picturization of the servants. Resting after a hard day labor. All servants are resting there after a hard day labor, and so we can say all these 4 points can show us that the graphic picturization of G. Patel is very good. He is a poet in India and also famous all over the world. G. Patel, who was born in 1940 as a doctor by profession. He was a doctor by his profession, but later on he adopted the occupation of a poet, or he is well-known playwright and a painter. And the effect of his paintership we can see in the poem. Because a painter can see every trace on the face of a person. In this poem, the poet express the face expression of the servant and the situation all around them. It is shown very beautifully as the painter shows in their picture. So we can say this is a graphic picture technique in this poem. We find a graphic picture technique in this poem. And the poet is a playwright also. The playwright means the play writer. And his first collection of poems was published in 1966. His play Picnics was produced in 1970 by the theatre group Bombay. And G. Patel, who was a Commonwealth poet, and his separate servant appear in the New Commonwealth Poets 1965. This poem firstly appear in this collection. So this is the poem. And now I want to move to the second poem of today, A Bomb Site. This poem is composed by Adil Jasuwala, who was born in 1940. He was also an Indian poet, and we are reading about the Indian poetry in English. A bomb site. It is very similar, it is very near in the theme of the poem to the poem Hiroshima. This is a very beautiful poem, Hiroshima, which was composed by Hiranand Vatsyayana, and he described in the poem the situation of the bomb site after the use of explosion. The first atomic bomb explosion in 1945, 6 August and 9 August, and he himself went there and take a real picturization and feel the real destruction of that place and present in his poem Hiroshima. In these lines, or in this poem, the poet described the actual description of the situation of a place where a bomb was blast. It is a very bad situation. So see one by one the poem. The poem inspired by a bomb site. It is not a particular bomb site. It represents the every bomb site all over the world, because it is a very real description of the bomb site. The poet expresses a tender devotion to the ruined home. All the homes are destroyed by the bomb, and this is not a tender devotion to the ruined home. The poet describes the vicious violence of children who has been brought up on a cult of destruction. The little children who were playing at the place of destruction, and they also show the vicious violence of children because they are busy to throwing the stones at some place, and they express their anger, their irritation to the mound. The last two lines sum up the thought of the poet who feels that violence dominates over life. These are the two beautiful lines in this poem. The last two lines sum up the thoughts of poet who feels that violence dominates over life. We live life according to the violence. We are controlled by the violence because violence is the dominant of our life. So look at one by one. As if the broken stumps were a girl's starved shoulder, and if the dusty rubble were her hair, starfished across a pillow, I would push my finger through its grit. These four lines shows the imagination of the poet. The poet said that the sight is just like looking like a girl. As a girl lifted her hair on a pillow and she was lying without any movement, and the hair was thrown here and there, the same sight can be seen at the place of bomb site, because there are destruction all around, and they are spread here and there all around. Similarly, the girl spread her hair on the pillow. As if the broken stumps were a girl, as if the broken houses are just like the girl's starved shoulder, the thin shoulder are presented, as if the dusty rubble were her hair, and the dusty heap, the heap of the dust after the blasting of the bomb is just like the hair starfished across a pillow. As the girl spread her hair on a pillow just like a starfish, as well as the mounds and the sands is the get situation all around, and take a picture of a girl who was lying on a pillow and spread her hair on the pillow. I would push my finger through its grit. Grit is represent the dirt and the sand of that area of bomb site, and he want to push his finger into the dust of that area. The second stanza present, I would press my bones into the bony, means I feel very shame and shoulder of these scarred homes, these destroyed home, these spotted home all around. As I pass above their sordid tops, I can, the poet compare that these houses are just looking the sordid tops. Sardid is a type of fish, and the tops of the sardid as well as the tops of the houses in that area. Concealed, reach out and the grapes and clean the greasy tin. And these are concealed, these are hide, the reach out and grapes and clean the greasy tin. These are used to clean the greasy tin. But the children throwing stones means the children are encouraging or spreading the violence all around the world. They are throwing some stones. Poet use a similar situation in these lines, that some children are throwing stones. Trench behind mounds. There is a trench behind mounds. There is a mound, and that behind it there was a trench. And holler and kill and crumble like stale new seeds. They are holler. They are shouting to each other, just like, oh. And kill and crumble, and they are killing and crumble to everything which they get, and stale new seeds, and they are faded new seeds in all around. Unsatisfied with spotless sky of peace, they are very unsatisfied, because not only the men destruct there, the clouds of the smoke also irritate them, because there is no drop of water in that area, only smoke and smoke are everywhere. And I begin to count my enemy. In these lines, in this line, the poet want to show that I am just going to know that how many enemies I have. Because if there are enemies of mine, they also want to kill me, and I also can be in a great miserable situation. So he wants to count her enemies. The last two lines shows violence is a culture found on playgrounds, that we create violence at the playground of any game. We create the thinking of differentness of the other players, and we create them a fear, we create them in a feeling of joy after the victory, we create them a feeling of despair after the losing the game, and we create their mind, we manage their mind to win always. How? It is not burden for the personal, for the boys and for the society, because they want to get everything by force or by attempt. Violence is a culture, it's found in our playground. Cities fall to let their children breathe. Cities fall, cities fights with each other because they want that their children will live very peacefully in the world. They are fighting today to make peace in the future. It is very contrastive thought that we fight to a person to make peace. What a nuance it is, that a peace is taken by a war. Or we can say that if a person fights someone to make a peace, it is a very foolish idea, because this is not correct. But Adit Jassuwala shows a very poetic lines, and there is no particular rhyme scheme in this poem also. It is only a thought. It is only a thought to be developed, and a bomb site which is described by Adit Jassuwala. This bomb site expressed a devotion to the ruined home, because it expressed any site of the country, any site of the world after the bomb blasting. Agay wrote the poem Hiroshima after the blast of 24 October 1945, when America threw a bomb, an atom bomb on Nagasaki, and then another atom bomb on Hiroshima. After some time, Agay went there and saw the real situation of their city, and then composed the poem Hiroshima. This poem is very similar to that poem, because that poem also shows a scene of bomb site, and it is also a bomb site scene. Adit Jassuwala studied at Oxford and taught in London for a few years. He studied in Oxford and then taught in London after some time. His Lord's Eye was published in 1962. His Lord's Eyes, it is a famous collection of poems was published in 1962. No rhyme scheme is found in this poem, and the poet edited an anthology of Indian writing in English. It is another work of the poet. The poet edited an anthology of Indian writings in English. Anthology means a collection of poetry. The poet composed the poetry, the poet edited an anthology of Indian English poetry, he was a playwright also and a doctor by occupation. These all qualities are gathered in one person, and that is Adij Jassuwala. Adij Jassuwala is a great personality in Indian English. Though the poem appears to have been inspired by a bomb site, but it is every site after the bomb blasting, because all sites are similar after blast, because there is no fixed pattern, there is not a fixed pattern of exploding into the bomb. The bomb explodes its baruds and the tensions, and after that the same situation can be found all around the world. All around the world, all the situations are very same. So we can say that it is also a one more poem which is very unusual theme. The first servant is an unusual theme in the poetry, because the poet, most of poets wants to make poetry on some romantic idea in these days. But these two poets take a different type of theme in their poem. As G. Patel take a poem, they take a theme of servant's life, the situation in the countryside or the countryside situation and the situation at the city life. And in the second poem, a bomb site, Adij Jassuwala presents effect after the bomb site. It is just, he just compare it with a girl who was spreading her hair on a pillow. And it shows that all the destruction are very same, very similar, and there is a pattern in destruction also. So these two poems shows us that the modern poets choose a different type of topic for their poetry. These two type of poetry shows us that not only the romantic poetry is popular in this world, the practical topics of the poetry is also very popular. In next class, we will read about Tribute to Papa, which is a very famous poem by Mamta Kalia, and Lines for a Photograph, which is written by R. Parsarthi. These are two famous poems which will be read by us into the next class. So, till then, have a good day.